I used to think betrayal came with fireworks, shouting, crying, slammed doors. But the truth is, betrayal comes quietly. It creeps in on ordinary days, when your coffee's still warm and the morning news is on low in the background. My name's Daniel Keene. I'm 42. I work at a small auto parts warehouse in Dayton, Ohio. Nothing glamorous, just shelves of bolts, alternators, and timing belts. I've been there for nearly 15 years. Steady job. Decent pay. I live in a modest, two-story home on Ashland Drive. My wife, Melissa, teaches third grade at the elementary school 10 minutes from here. She loves her students, or at least that's what she always said. We've been married 11 years. No kids, though not for lack of trying. At some point, we just stopped talking about it. Life kept moving. Work, dinner, sleep. Repeat. Until that Tuesday morning. It started like any other. I left the house at 7:30. Melissa was still in her bathrobe, flipping through her lesson planner at the kitchen table, sipping chamomile tea. She smiled at me like she always did. Kissed me on the cheek. I remember thinking how tired she looked. I asked if she was okay. She said, "Just didn't sleep well. I'll be fine." I nodded and walked out the door. At around noon, I realized I'd left my lunch at home. I never do that. Melissa usually packs it for me. Turkey sandwich, banana, sometimes a note tucked inside. But not that day. I figured I'd swing by the house during my break. I told Jerry, the shift manager, I'd be back in 20. He waved me off, already buried in a clipboard. I pulled into the driveway and noticed something strange. Melissa's car was gone. That wasn't too unusual. Maybe she went out for lunch or forgot something at the store. Still, my stomach felt a little off. I went inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then I saw it, her phone, sitting on the kitchen counter. Now, Melissa never leaves her phone behind. Never. She's one of those people who's always glued to it, texting friends, checking Pinterest, whatever. But there it was, screen down, right next to the napkin holder. Curious, I picked it up. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second. I'm not proud of what I did next. I unlocked it. I knew the passcode, our anniversary. Messages. Calendar. Photos. All normal at first glance. But then, I saw something strange. A second messaging app one didn't recognize. The icon was buried in a folder labeled Tools. I opened it. That's when everything changed. There were messages. Dozens of them. All from one contact. Client 03. The texts weren't sexual, at least not overtly. But they were disturbing in another way. Arrangements. Times. Payments. Same hotel as last time? You'll get the full $800 once it's done. Don't mention names. Ever. I scrolled, heart pounding. Melissa's replies were cold. Businesslike. Room 412 confirmed. Half a front, half after. No touching, no photos. I felt sick. I dropped the phone onto the counter like it burned. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. A joke. A scam. But deep down I knew. This wasn't a joke. Melissa was selling herself. Not for love. Not for some desperate need. But for money. And the worst part? She was good at hiding it. I stood there, staring out the kitchen window. My hands were shaking. My whole life, our life, felt like a stage set, hollow behind the curtains. I needed to know more. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I waited. I sat in my car down the street from the house, watching for her to return. 45 minutes later, she pulled in. Calm. Collected. Like she'd just come from yoga class. She had a coffee in one hand and her school tote in the other. I watched her walk inside. I didn't follow. Instead, I drove back to work, heart in my throat, thoughts racing. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't let it go. This wasn't just cheating. This was betrayal for profit. And something inside me snapped. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay next to her in the dark, staring at the ceiling, while Melissa breathed steadily beside me. It's a strange kind of hell, knowing the person you trust most is living a double life, yet pretending everything's normal. At 2:37 a.m., I got out of bed and went to the garage. Just stood there, arms folded, listening to the night. I kept seeing those messages in my head, room numbers, prices, her short replies. Cold, transactional. I wasn't even angry yet. I was stunned. Numb. The next morning, I played dumb. I smiled, kissed her on the cheek like always, and asked how her day looked. She said she had a parent-teacher conference around 11 o'clock and might grab lunch with some other teachers afterward. I said, "Sounds good." Then I watched her drive away. I followed her. Not closely. Just enough to keep her taillights in view. She didn't head toward the school. She drove south, toward the highway. 10 miles out, she exited near the airport, pulled into the lot of a mid-range hotel. Nothing sketchy, nothing too nice. Just ordinary. I parked across the street behind a car wash. Watched her walk into the lobby. Tight gray skirt. White blouse. Not how a third-grade teacher usually dresses for a parent meeting. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. I couldn't take it anymore. I got out and crossed the lot. I didn't go in. I just needed confirmation. Something undeniable. At the side entrance, I saw him. A man in his 50s, well-dressed, sunglasses on even though the sky was cloudy. He knocked on a side door. Melissa opened it. She smiled. That was it. Not guilt. Not regret. A smile. Polite. Professional. She closed the door behind him. I drove straight to work and sat in the lot for an hour. I didn't even go in. Jerry texted asking if I was okay. I told him I had car trouble. I wasn't ready to tell anyone. Not yet. I went back to that app. Every time she was working late. Every night she claimed to be at book club or school events, there were messages. Arrangements. Payments. A schedule. This wasn't a one-time mistake. She had a system. For weeks, I acted like nothing had changed. I became a ghost in my own home. I started saving screenshots, forwarding messages to a hidden email, backing up her app in case she ever deleted it. I even checked our bank account. Nothing suspicious at first. But then I found a new account under her maiden name. She'd been moving the money there, slowly, methodically. She was good. Too good. And it made me wonder, how long had she been doing this? The answer came in the form of a receipt. An old dry cleaning stub from almost 3 years ago, stuck between pages of a cookbook she never used. It had the name of a boutique laundry downtown. I called. The guy remembered her. Always brought in high-end stuff. Fancy dresses. Said she was a consultant. A consultant. 3 years. Maybe more. I didn't know who she was anymore. And I didn't know what to do with all the rage building up inside me. I thought about confronting her. Screaming. Demanding answers. But what would she say? She'd lie? Or cry? Or twist it around until I was the one apologizing? No. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to understand her. Study her. Like a problem to be solved. Because once I knew everything, every client, every dollar, every lie, then I'd decide what to do. And I already knew one thing for certain. This wasn't going to end with divorce. Some people fantasize about revenge like it's a quick fix. A moment of glory. Shouting in someone's face, throwing a suitcase on the lawn, maybe slashing some tires. But me? I'm a warehouse guy. I know systems. I know timing. And most of all, I know that every mess has a paper trail. Melissa had hers too. I started keeping 2 notebooks, one for what I found, one for what I planned. I didn't want to rely on digital copies. I knew how good she was at covering tracks. I had to be better. I gave each client a name, based on time, place, and pattern. Airport guy. Red tie. Wednesday regular. There were 8 repeat contacts over the last 2 years, and at least 15 one-timers. I made a chart. Mapped the dates to her excuses. She'd lied to my face 41 times that I could prove. And still, she kissed me goodnight. Still called me on. That's the part that really twisted the knife. Then came the question I'd been avoiding. Why? Why was she doing this? We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling. I checked credit cards, loan records. No gambling debts. No secret shopping addiction. She wasn't paying off anyone. She was hoarding it. Her secret account had over $137,000 in it. Neat. Organized. Labeled by month. She didn't need the money. She wanted it. And it hit me. This wasn't desperation. This was ambition. That was the moment I stopped mourning. I stopped asking why. I started asking how to break her. But not just emotionally. I wanted her to feel exposed. Powerless. Watched. So I started showing up in places I knew she'd be. Subtle at first. The grocery store where one of her clients worked. A museum she said she hated, but had visited 3 times this year. A jazz bar across town. I never approached her. I just let her see me. A flicker of confusion in her eyes, then a smile. But deep down, I knew I was shaking her. Then one night, I did something bold. I left a note in her purse. Room 412. No touching. No photos. That's all it said. I signed it. Client 09. She didn't mention it. Not that night, not the next morning. But I watched her that week. Her hands fidgeted more. She kept checking her phone in the middle of conversations. She double-locked the front door. She was afraid. And fear, I realized, was the only way to reach someone like her. Someone who compartmentalized betrayal like it was part of a work schedule. So I escalated. I called her from a burner number and disguised my voice using a text-to-speech app. Said I knew what she was doing. Said I had photos. That I'd be in touch. She didn't answer. But she froze. She stopped taking meetings for a week. Started working late at the actual school. Or maybe just trying to hide in plain sight. I waited. Then, I left her a printed photo in the mailbox. Just one, her and airport guy from the side entrance. She never saw me take it, but there it was. High res. Clear. No note. No threat. Just proof. That night, I watched her sit alone on the patio for almost an hour, staring into space. She didn't cry. She didn't confess. She got smarter. She deleted the app. Transferred the bank account into another alias. Bought a second phone. Started using encrypted email instead. She thought she was covering her tracks. But I was already in front of her now. She just didn't know it. Fear is a powerful motivator, but only when it comes with uncertainty. Melissa thought she was in control again. She changed her habits, scrubbed her phone, even stopped seeing clients for almost a month. I played along, kept smiling, kept eating dinner at the same table like nothing had changed. But I was still watching. She didn't know I had already installed a small, wireless cam behind the air vent in her car. another in her purse, one in the home office, tucked behind a stack of yearbooks. I knew her passwords, her routines, the little lies she told even to herself. I didn't need to guess anymore. I had the truth from every angle. And now it was time to take things from her. Not all at once. That's not how you break someone like Melissa. You chip away at what they value most: control, reputation, money. The three pillars of her secret empire. So I started with money. She never noticed the $500 withdrawal from her hidden account. Or the next one. I timed it perfectly, during her fake client meetings. She thought the men were just bailing. One of them actually did. I sent him an email from Melissa, saying she was out of town for good and not interested in rescheduling. He replied with a single sentence: "Unprofessional. Never again." Melissa looked shaken for days after that. But she still said nothing to me. She couldn't. Because admitting what was happening meant admitting what she'd been doing. That was the genius of it. I didn't need to expose her yet. She was unraveling all on her own. Then came her job. She still loved pretending to be a teacher. It gave her credibility. Respect. I couldn't take the job itself from her, but I could stain it. I made an anonymous report to the school board. Just vague enough to raise flags. Concerned about Miss Keene's off-campus conduct. Maybe misrepresenting herself. I included no real proof. Just suggestions. Hints. Enough to trigger a quiet HR review. They called her in on a Wednesday afternoon. I watched from my car in the parking lot as she walked in, clutching her laptop like a shield. 40 minutes later, she came out pale, blinking too much, eyes scanning the lot. She looked right past me. That night, she barely touched her food. I asked if she was feeling okay. She smiled and said it was just teacher stress. She didn't know her world was already tilting. I waited another week before going for the final pillar, her image. Melissa was always careful. No photos. No names. But people are sloppy eventually. One of her regulars had taken a selfie in the mirror of a hotel bathroom, shirtless, smug, with Melissa in the background, partially blurred. It wasn't graphic, but it was enough. I created a fake Facebook account, sent it to her old college roommate, anonymously. 2 days later, that roommate called Melissa during dinner. I heard her whispering in the hallway, the edge in her voice sharp. Melissa said, "That's fake. It's photoshopped." Her tone shook. She stayed up that night. I watched her from the hallway mirror. Just sat on the bed with her head in her hands, staring at nothing. She was cracking. But she still hadn't told me the truth. I almost admired the stubbornness. Almost. She thought silence would save her. That if she ignored it long enough, the problem would go away. But I was the problem now. And I was only getting started. Everyone has a breaking point. Melissa was close, but not there yet. She still wore the mask. Still got dressed for work like everything was normal. Still smiled at neighbors. She even asked me if I wanted to go hiking that weekend, like it was 2015 and our marriage hadn't become a smokescreen. I said yes. She looked relieved. But in my notebook, I wrote 3 words. Final phase begins. The next day, I mailed 8 sealed envelopes. 1 to the school superintendent, 1 to her principal, 1 to her pastor, and 5 to her immediate family members, mom, sister, cousin, uncle, and her retired cop father. Inside each was a flash drive. Each drive had 1 video, hotel security footage I'd acquired using a contact from work, grainy, yes, but unmistakable. Melissa, walking in with a man, leaving alone an hour later. Each had 1 photo, Melissa at home, reading messages from her clients. Her face lit by the glow of the screen. Clear as day. Each drive had a note. Thought you should know who she really is. I dropped them all in separate mailboxes across 3 cities. Then I waited. 3 days later, she came home early. No text. No call. She just walked in through the garage, key shaking in her hand. Her face was different now. She didn't speak at first. Just stood there in the hallway like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Finally she said, "Someone sent my father a video." I looked up from the TV. "What kind of video?" She stared at me for a full 10 seconds, then whispered, "You know what kind." Her eyes were glassy, but she wasn't crying. Not yet. I shrugged. Weird world out there. She didn't accuse me. She couldn't, because accusing me meant revealing everything. So she stood there, alone in the wreckage, trying to figure out if I was her enemy or her last hope. That night, she packed a small bag. Said she needed space. I nodded. "Take all the time you need." She left. No kiss. No goodbye. Just the sound of tires on wet pavement as she pulled away. I didn't follow her. I already knew where she'd go. Her sister lived 40 minutes away. I hacked her Ring camera months ago. So I watched, on my phone, as Melissa arrived sobbing on the doorstep and was let in without question. For 3 days, she stayed there. But it wasn't peace she was finding. It was questions. From her family. From her job. From the people who once believed she was someone else. The damage was already done. And still, I wasn't finished. Because this wasn't just about humiliation. It was about justice. The kind no court could give. So I waited until the 4th night. I knew she'd come back eventually, like someone returning to the scene of a fire. People like Melissa don't run, they regroup. Sure enough, just after midnight, the garage door opened. She walked in slow, cautious. The house was dark, but not silent. I'd left a voice memo playing on a loop in the living room, just quiet enough to be unsettling. "Room 412 confirmed. No touching. No photos." Her voice. Her own words. Over and over. She froze. Then turned it off. She stood in the center of the room, breathing heavy. And that's when I stepped out of the shadows. "Didn't think I'd still be here, did you?" She jumped. Turned to face me. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stepped closer. "You lied to everyone," I said. "But mostly to me. 4 years." She started to speak, but I raised a hand. "I don't need your reasons. I don't want your tears. I just want you to understand something." I pulled out her phone. Opened the app she thought was gone. Showed her all the saved screenshots, the backup logs, the transferred payments. Her knees buckled. She sat hard on the couch. "You've already lost your job," I said. "Your reputation. Your family's trust." She looked up at me, her face hollow. "Why are you doing this?" I leaned in. "Because you made me a fool," I whispered. "And I decided I wasn't going to be the only one who felt that way." Then I walked out of the room and left her in the dark. She didn't leave the house for 3 days. I watched her from the hallway camera. She didn't cook, didn't clean, barely moved. Just sat in the living room like a ghost in her own life. I had broken her, but it wasn't enough. Because breaking her wasn't the end. I wanted her to feel it every day. The weight of what she'd done. The rot underneath every smile she ever gave me. This wasn't about getting even. This was about permanence. So I burned the last bridge. Her job was already gone. She resigned after the school board found concerns about character impossible to explain away. Her father stopped speaking to her. Her mother blocked her number. Only her sister still picked up, brief, stiff calls that ended in silence. And now, the money. That secret account she was so careful with. I emptied it. All $137,000 transferred to a charity that supports trafficking victims. I even sent the receipt to her email with one line. Better use for it than yours. She must have screamed when she saw it. Threw something. The hallway camera glitched from the sound of crashing glass. She tried to transfer funds back, but the account was closed. She tried calling the bank. I'd already changed the recovery email and disabled her ID. She was locked out of her own lie. That night, she finally knocked on my bedroom door. I didn't answer. She knocked again, then opened it slowly. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. She stood there, small and pale in the doorway, hands shaking. I know you did this, she said, her voice barely audible. I turned to her. You think I care about what you know? She flinched. I just want to talk, she said, like a child asking for forgiveness they hadn't earned. No, I said coldly. You want a reset. But this isn't a movie, Melissa. There's no reset. She stepped inside, pleading now. I was lost. I made mistakes, horrible ones. But Stop. I stood up. You did this for money. Not need. Not survival. But greed. You played me for years. Like I was furniture in your little double life. And you thought I'd never notice. She started to cry. But I didn't care. I pulled something from the drawer. A small wooden box. Inside it were dozens of flash drives. Videos. Screenshots. Logs. A perfect archive of her deception. I handed it to her. Take it. That's your legacy now. That's who you really are. And I want you to live with it. She stared at the box like it was poison. I'm leaving, I said. The house. This town. Everything. She blinked. You're leaving? Yeah. You don't deserve the satisfaction of watching me stay broken. I'm not staying in your wreckage. I paused. But you are? She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing now, loud, desperate. The way someone cries when they realize the game is really over. I didn't comfort her. I walked past her and out the door. The next morning, I loaded my truck with everything I needed. My tools. A few clothes. My notebooks. Melissa sat on the porch, still holding that box. She didn't try to stop me. Didn't say a word. I didn't look back. I drove west. Didn't matter where at first, just away. Away from that house. Away from the years of pretending. I passed towns I'd never heard of, slept in motels with flickering signs, stared at peeling ceilings, and thought about everything she'd taken from me, but also what I'd taken back. Somewhere in Missouri, I stopped for gas and bought a notebook. A new one. Not for revenge. Not for planning. For remembering. Because there were pieces of myself I didn't want to lose in the mess she left behind. The version of me that believed in loyalty. Simplicity. Quiet mornings and shared smiles. That man didn't die. He evolved. It took weeks before the dream stopped. The images. The sound of her voice saying, no touching. No photos. But they did fade. Pain doesn't disappear. It just settles into the walls of your mind like old wallpaper. You stop noticing it. But it's always there. I found work in a small town in Wyoming. Another warehouse. Smaller, quieter. They don't ask questions here. Just hand you a clipboard and point toward the inventory. It's peaceful. Most people wouldn't believe what happened if I told them. The guy loading pallets next to me thinks I used to be a teacher. The cashier at the diner thinks I used to run a lawn care business. Let them guess. The truth isn't for them. But every so often, maybe once a month, I check the cameras back home. Yes, I left them running. She doesn't know. Probably thinks they were deactivated when I left. But I see everything. She rarely leaves the house now. She's thinner. Her hair's shorter. She stopped wearing makeup. Her phone sits next to her, unopened most of the day. The porch is cracked. The garden's dead. The woman who once lived a double life now barely lives at all. And every now and then, a car pulls up to the house. A stranger knocks on the door, holding an envelope or an old photo, looking confused. I can only imagine what's in their heads. She never answers. Just peeks through the curtains and hides until they leave. Good. Let the past haunt her. Let the silence stretch. She made her choices. I made mine. People ask if revenge is ever worth it. If you walk away feeling lighter or darker. The answer is both. But here's the part no one tells you. Sometimes, justice isn't loud. It's not violent. It's not even dramatic. Sometimes, it's just permanent. I don't need to go back. I don't need to finish anything. It's already finished. And every night, as I fall asleep in a quiet room above a quiet town, I smile at one last thought. She's still living in that house. And every shadow, every creak, every knock on the door. She wonders if it's me.